Hi, everyone. Your godmother's here to do her top 10 Australian horror films. And thank you so much for being here. And listen, I'm trying to fix these wires that are wrapped around my leg like snakes. Thank you for being here and for listening to me blather on. You know, I love you all. I want to start with a shout out to dear friend Ali Rhodes, who played along with my Substack question. Now, for those of you who aren't following my Substack, I can't talk, please do. And I do offer these little questions and things, and so you're welcome to play along too. I had asked people what their favorite Australian horror film was, and she offered, for your consideration, Long Weekend from 1978, directed by Colin Eggleston and starring John Hargreaves. And it's about a suburban couple who go camping for the weekend at a remote beach and discover that nature isn't as accommodating as they want nature to be. Nature's not in a good mood. This is a really good piece of eco horror. Ali said it freaked her out when she watched it in the UK with her father. They watched it on television. Thank you, Ali, for your fantastic recommendation. And now I will go into mine. My number 10 is a controversial pick, and it's controversial because many people found it to be a bit of a snooze, but I did not. And that's Run, Rabbit, Run from 2023, directed by Dana Reed and starring Sarah Snook. I like it. And mainly, and I know this is going to seem like a dumb reason, but this is my top 10 list. I'm allowed my reasons. There's a child who wears a rabbit mask in this film, and that mask brings up a lot of associations for me, like Donnie Darko and The Strangers. So just this child running around in this mask is enough to kind of set me on edge a little bit. And I do love movies that include creepy kids. This movie is sepia drenched. It looks like when you're watching the film, it has that dusty look to it. And I did give this one a longer review, I think, when I was doing 2023 films. I'm trying to remember. So if you want to go back and look at that, you can. But the sepia tone, I'll just briefly say, it works because this film is really about memory and trauma and the imprint of those experiences on our lives. Sarah Snook plays the creepy child's mother, and she's fighting against this continuous wave of disappointment. She's had a failed marriage, estrangement from her family, and a creepy kid. Like, she's got this creepy kid. But put a pin on this because there is another film coming up later that does this even better. So I do agree there's room for improvement in Run, Rabbit, Run. But where others were disappointed, I enjoyed it enough to put it in my top 10. Number 9 is Sissy from 2022, directed by Hannah Barlow and Kane Sens and starring Aisha Dee and Hannah Barlow. So Aisha and Hannah play childhood friends, Cecilia and Emma, who drift apart, but then they're reunited accidentally when they bump into each other in a pharmacy. And Emma invites Cecilia to her bachelorette party and then to her hens weekends. Y'all, like, women out there listening, y'all know how complicated women's relationships can be. And I don't mean complicated necessarily in a negative way. They're very nuanced and layered, and women share an intimacy that men are often not allowed to share. And so that makes our relationships that much more intense. And so when things go wrong in a relationship or someone feels betrayed in a relationship, it can be really intense, almost like a divorce or something. And that's sort of what happens in this film. There's sort of a feeling of betrayal and things go sideways on this weekend trip. There's some nice gore in this film. The character of Cecilia is a self-help influencer, and there's some clever jabs at, non-trained people trying to be like mental health professionals, even though they really don't have any training at all, and that can be sort of dangerous. This movie's not very deep, but it is a lot of fun. Number 8 is The Furies from 2019, directed by Tony DeQuino and starring Danielle Horvat. This film begins in medias res, and like I'm watching it and I'm going, what what's going on? And that was kind of my attitude the entire, I'm like, what's happening the whole way through this film? Not necessarily in a bad way. But really what put this at number 8 for me is the very last act of it. So basically when it starts off, we learn that young women are being abducted, and they wake up and they find themselves in these boxes, like almost like a coffin, like a box in the middle of the woods, like out in the middle of nowhere. And when they come out of the box, they realize that they're being haunted by men in masks. So it's creepy, right? And I'm like, I'm all in. I'm all in. This is slasher-esque. I love it. But then they have the main character. She has epilepsy. And they do these sort of flashback. Like when she has epileptic seizures, it fills in the backstory. She sees things. And it's a nice way of avoiding an expository lump. But until I got to the final act, my feeling was sort of like, why can't we just have it be like The Strangers, where it's just random? That's super scary. Like random is scary. But it does the third act really pays off, especially for someone, if you've been following me, you know that I write feminist horror. I'm very into feminist horror, and this is sort of a good for her film, which I will be doing my top 10 good for her films at some point. There's some nice slasher moments. This film is really gory. So if that is not your thing, I would stay away from it. Again, I like the slasher thing. I liked, them being chased by these men in masks. But I really liked the final act. That was the payoff. Another gory one lands at number 7, and that is Wolf Creek. I'm sorry. I know when I did my top 10 werewolf films, everyone made fun of me for the way I say wolf. Wolf Creek. I'm trying. Wolf Creek. You know what it is. Look at the poster. From 2005, directed by Greg McLean and starring Nathan Phillips and John Jarrett. And John Jarrett plays Mick Taylor, who's a true horror baddie mix. Mix the best. He's crazy and scary, but kind of funny at the same time. Like he's right up there in that pantheon of villains. He's an outback boy, and he helps stranded tourists. And by help, I mean he tortures and terrorizes them, and he does it with such glee. Yes, I did see the second film. I skipped a TV series because it was not well received. And I really, really think that this first film holds up. Like it holds on its own. I'm fine with it just as it is. Again, this one, it's chilling. It is very gory. It's very gory. There's a little torture pornish qualities to it, but it delivers this really oddly delightful terrorizer in Mick Taylor. Number 6, maybe another controversial one, is some may not feel that this is an actual horror film, but to me, it does fall under that umbrella. It's haunting. It's beautiful. And it is Boys in the Trees from 2016, directed by Nicholas Verso and starring Toby Wallace and Gulliver McGrath. It's from 2016, but it takes place 1997 on Halloween night. And Halloween movies, like you've got me. If it's a Halloween movie, I'm in. I want to see it. It's my favorite night of the year. It is my new year. It is my everything. Those of you who've been following me on social media, you know that I take Halloween very, very seriously. Me and Sam. If you know, you know. But this is Halloween night, 1997. 2 teens are out weaving their way through childhood memories. And it's kind of like that emerging adulthood, coming of age, dealing with the loss of childhood. But something bad happens on this night. And did I mention this film's gorgeous? There's a shot of the boys' shadows that looks like wolves. I just love, there's just some shots in this film that I actually have to pause and just look at them like they're a piece of art. It's beautiful. It's gothic yet surreal. And I know it's made in 2016, but they land the 90s. It's so 90s. It's a coming of age movie that really stayed with me. Speaking of coming of age, number 5. Here's a movie that really sends me into an existential crisis. and it's Lake Mungo from 2008, directed by Joel Anderson and starring Rosie Traynor and David Pledger. And I talked more about Lake Mungo when I did mockumentaries, because that's what this is. This is a found footage film that acts as a mockumentary. The dialogue is so well written and the acting is so good that you really believe you're watching a documentary. It's so well done. It feels like they're really just talking to the camera about their experiences. There is a famous jump scare scene in this film, but that's not what got me. Again, I have an existential crisis about this film. I'm glad that I watched this after my children were out of their teenage years and were grown, because I think it might have even hit me more. This is psychological horror at its best. And I recommend only watching it if you have the energy for some heavy emotional lifting. The top four now are really a four-way tie for me. They can go in any direction on any given day. So number 4, or I guess 3, or I guess 2 is Bring Her Back, which ended up being my number 2 for 2025. It was from 2025, directed by Danny Philippou and Michael Philippou, and starring Sally Hawkins and come closer. I know she's been nominated for awards like the Fangoria Chainsaw Award, but come on, she's overlooked. And if you want to talk, we can really talk about how the Oscar nominations this year were really. There's a lot of bad snubs, But Sally Hawkins was amazing in this film. It also stars Billy Barrett. And if you know anything about The Godmother, you know I love me an A24 film. I love A24 films. So Bring Her Back is about 2 siblings who are sent to foster care, and they find out some really disturbing things about their foster mom. And again, I went into it a little bit more in my top 10 2025. And I'm sorry they keep saying I went into this more and like I'm sending you on a goose hunt or something. I'm not. I'm just also trying to not bore the people who sat through those. But basically, what I had said was I really love the relationship between the siblings in this film. I love their secret language. I love how protective they are of each other. And I love how the writers, directors of this film didn't pander to the audience. They trusted us to weave the story together. And this film is scary and it's disturbing. And I think that might have been why it was not nominated for Oscars. I don't remember if it had any Golden Globes or anything. I think it might be a little too horror for those types of awards because it is so disturbing. Next is 3 or 4 or whatever on any given day. And it's another A24 and another Danny Philippou and Michael Philippou movie. And that's Talk to Me from 2022. And I did a full review of this film when it was first released. You can watch it. But God, this is a good movie. So many people loved it, and I loved it. In a nutshell, there's a game that the cool kids play at their parties, and it's that they grip a corpse hand and they conjure spirits. And what's so wonderful about this film is that the game is like a drug to these kids. Like they have to keep going back to it. They want more and more of a thrill. They keep pushing the limits of it until it becomes absolutely deadly. The movie's tense and frightening the entire way through. And it's well acted. It's exactly what we've come to expect from A24 and exactly what we've come to expect from the Philippou brothers. And I can't wait to see what they have in store for us next. And I'm going to stop with all the it could be number 4. This is number 2. Let's just say it's number 2. And it's The Loved Ones from 2009, directed by Sean Byrne and starring Xavier Samuel and Robin McLeavy in this film. If you have not seen this film, horror fans, this is a must watch. This is your homework. If you've not seen it, you have to go back and watch it. This is crazy, this film. It's like prom night or formal night, y'all. And Brent, who, recently suffered a loss. We know so many of these horror films are about grief and loss, and this is no different. He has recently turned down an invitation to the formal from Lola. And Lola is completely unhinged. So she abducts Brent with the help of her equally unhinged, maybe more unhinged father. And they have their own formal in their house. And from there, it's a torture fest, folks. And we find out that Brent is not Lola's first victim. This is a wild ride. So much fun. Again, if you haven't seen it, you have to. You must see it. And finally, number 1 is The Babadook from 2014, directed by Jennifer Kent. We love her. It's starring Essie Davis and Noah Weissman. And here's what I wanted, when we were talking about Run Rabbit Run, here it is. Here it is. We've got the same kind of scenario. It's just so exquisitely done here. In The Babadook, we have a widowed mother, and her husband passed right before she gave birth to the child. So he has never been in the child's life. She's been a single parent the entire time. She's a nurse. She's completely exhausted. She is not the glowing, rapturous mother that women are expected to be by society. Her child is an absolute nightmare. He is such a problem. And he becomes obsessed with this monster from a book, The Babadook. So I've also done a deep dive into this film before, but it bears repeating. Kent's use of color just really struck me in this film. Most of the film takes place inside the home. And when you're inside the home, it's all these blues, which really symbolizes the depression and the grief. Like you can almost feel it just hanging inside the home. While this is going on, the mother, who's the one primarily battling this grief and depression, she's in pinks. It's remarkable. It really, just that use of color palette is so effective. The movie really ramps up when we realize the horror is coming from inside the house. No, it's actually not coming from inside the son. It's coming from inside mom. And I'm going to spend time during Women in Horror Month, basically March when this is out, talking about the monstrous feminine and the monstrous mother. And I have some really great guests talking about that. So if that sort of conversation, going into that sort of scholarly avenue about films is interesting to you, please stay tuned for that. Hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss those. They'll be coming out in March, not March 1st, but later in March. So again, thank you so much. Again, I love you all. Thank you for going down under. See, I only did the accent once, unlike in the French. And I apologize for the French. I cannot do the French accent. But we have some startling and terrifying horror from Australia. I do love Australia horror films. They're amazing. Next month, we're going in the opposite direction. We're going to head north for some Canadian horror. So if you don't want to miss that, stomp on that subscribe button.